Hey again, guys. Time for me to teach you guys about surpluses and shortages. And remember, we're still on supply and demand, so we're still using the same graph. So here we go. Supply and demand. Sorry about the graph, still tablet, Alright, so here's how these will work. So let's say you're a starting company and you're trying to figure out how much to charge for your product. Remember, equilibrium is where you want to charge for your product because that's where you produce a certain amount, which is right down here, quantity, and since that's where the price will hit the supply curve, that's how much you'll produce, and it's the demand curve at the same exact point, that's how much people will buy. So that means everything you make, you sell, because that's how much people want. So that's what you want to find optimally, right? That point right there. But you're testing, so you don't just automatically get that point right away. So let's say that this price, let me just erase it. The optimal price, let's say you're making a soft drink, vinegar flavored soda, and people are willing to buy it for $1. But you're testing, and so you decide to try and sell it for $1.50. So let's do that. Okay, let's look at where it hits demand and where it hits the supply. And move all the way down. Okay. Now, this point is where it hits the demand. So down here we're going to put quantity demanded 1. And here it hits the supply. We're going to go down and put quantity supplied 1. So look at that. The quantity supplied right here is a lot greater than the quantity demanded over here. So quantity supplied 1 is greater than quantity demanded 1. What does that mean? The company is making supplied more than people actually want. So if they're making more than they want, what's that called? It's called a surplus. Oops, surplus. Because that means you're going to have some left over, a lot left over actually. This is the surplus, and this is how much you'll have left over. The difference of that. How much you make minus how much they want, that'll give you how much you have left over. Alright? So let's go and do same thing, but a shortage. Alright, so remember this was 150. So you tried, no, my bad, that wasn't 150, that was 1. Okay, so you tried 150 and that didn't work out, so you're like, okay, let me try 50 cents. Let's do that. Mark where it hits supply curve, mark where it hits the demand curve. Go down, go down. This is where it hits supplied, this is quantity supplied. This is quantity demanded, so that's where it hits the demand curve. Now look, quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied. What that means is we want more than they give us. Because remember how we were talking about why the supply curve is sloped that way and demand curve is sloped that way? Well, for 50 cents, the company's not going to want to make a lot of that vinegar soda because they can't sell it for a lot and they won't get a lot of profit. But for 50 cents, wow, that's cheap. We'll buy a lot of it if it's that cheap. So we want a lot of it because it's cheap, but they don't want to make a lot because it's cheap and they won't make a lot of profit. So when we want more than they actually give us, that's called a shortage. And likewise, how we were doing before with the surplus, this area here, that's going to be how much we want that we don't have. Quantity demanded minus quantity supplied equals want. That's how much more we want that they're not giving us. So we demand this much. Let's say we demand right here 500, and they supply only 100. So that means, look at that, 500 minus 100 equals 400. There's 400 more cans we're willing to buy, but they're not willing to make. So that's a shortage. And now let's just look at one final thing. A little bit more of something you should have known, but we're going to go a little bit more into it. So they're like, okay, finally I'll set the price to $1. So look at that. Where did I hit the supply curve? This point, right? So you go down here and the quantity supplied. Where's the demand curve though? It hits at the same exact point. This point again. So you go down, same exact point as the quantity supplied as the quantity demanded. So quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. That's called, we talked about it earlier, market equilibrium. And that's where they sell everything they make. Because how much they make is exactly how much we want. So that's how that's going to work out. Since QS minus QD is going to equal 0. Because there's nothing that we want that they're not supplying, and there's nothing that they're supplying that we don't want. So it's not a surplus, it's not a shortage, it's equilibrium. That's what we always want to get to. So that's surplus and shortages. I'll actually elaborate more on them a little bit next video with something called price floors and price ceilings, so stay tuned.